Welcome to Laughing to Death Moments in Mortality with two death doulas. I am Taylor Bell, joined by,
Lacy by Nat.
and today we are going to talk about how animals can inform or teach us about death. What planted the seed for this idea was actually a long time ago with my first senior adoptee, Buddy, who was 17 when we got him. So he was already kind of on his way out. And when we knew he was getting closer to the end, I remember at one point he was in the kitchen in his little donut bed and he just looked so sad. And I was just on the floor and I'm like, Buddy, I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I wish I could make it better. And oh my God. And he just lifted his head and turned away and like, and it was just kind of like, lady, okay, but oh my God. And it just was really insightful though, because it made me realize, like, okay, yeah, that's my experience. He's having a different one. He's tired. He's done. And it was just a moment of realizing, like, oh, this is what it's like when we overlay our experience onto somebody else, whether it's an animal or a human.
And another thing that I have relied on you for over the years, and I know other people have reached out to you for this as well, is I have to make this choice,
Mhm.
to decide when euthanasia should happen. And that is so heavy and so feels like so much responsibility and to get it just right. And I know you have probably a lot of thoughts around that, but that's one area that I think a lot of people have really struggled with when it comes to their pets.
Back to Buddy, like, we waited too long to euthanize him. But because of that experience, when we got our next senior dog, Campbell, and when it was time for him, like, we waited, I think, about 24 hours too long. That was it, because we knew at that point, we're like, this, we can't go any further. And so I do think it's, if we have that awareness and learn from our experiences, we can start to gauge a little better. Doesn't make it easier, but I think we can make a call faster of, like, okay, this is not about me, this is their suffering and I can help them. And to that end though, I think it translates to humans because it can help us honor choices people make, whether it's, I don't want a feeding tube, I don't want to pursue further treatment, I don't want to be on life support. There's something about that of, like, okay, I can support their letting be what is happening and not fight against it, or urge them to push harder to live longer.
Because you've had more practice separating out your experience versus their experience and truly
Exactly.
like what is best.
I think in that way too, so much about ceremony. We don't even think about how that might correlate to an animal. And so, to me, it's been really enriching to create ceremonies for these pets when they die and see the effect it has on me. And it has started to alter my choice of, like, what I want done with my body.
Interesting. Can you share a little bit about the some of the ceremonial or ritual things that you've incorporated?
Sure. So with my first dog, Slinky, and then with Buddy, both of those dogs I had cremated. That's just kind of what was offered, kind of what was done. And then with Campbell, I started learning more about honoring animals and that whole process. And that was when ultimately we ended up burying Campbell in our yard. And we shrouded him and put notes and flowers and some that you gave us, and, buried him. And it felt so complete. Like, I did not cry about him afterwards. Not that it would have been bad if I had. It just goes to show I felt like that time we had with his body after we took him somewhere, had him euthanized, brought him home, had some time, and then buried him. And that felt so full, to spend time with the body, to make it a purposeful burial, to have somewhere we can sit and he's right there. It was eye opening. And so for me, I see natural burial feeling like something that would feel very complete to me. And I think complete for those in my life.
It's like we as humans are designed to we need some kind of tactile physicality to like help our brains catch up with what's happening. And like our brains and bodies and hearts kind of all getting on the same page. so to speak. And these ways of being more involved, and whether it's ritual or just spending more time in stillness in the presence of the body that we've come to know as the person or the essence of the pet or
Hmm.
whatever, and just allowing for more time to like register that, it helps.
Absolutely. When I was going to say, well, you with Gracie right before y'all moved to Hawaii, that was,
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about that too, because that was my sort of first experience of like very much, very intentional. How do I want to do this? And in her case, so we'd had Gracie, my cat, I think 12 years, and she was healthy. And we had gone through months of getting all of this paperwork in order and vet visits and specific testing that had to be sent off across the country and blah, 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 so that we could move her to Hawaii. And they're very strict because it's a rabies quarantine island. So we had done all of that. And 3 days before we moved, so I am packing up the kitchen. I mean, you can imagine this move was just insane to begin with. And I was in the thick of it. And I wake up one morning and she's dying. And I knew the signs of that, and it was very clear to me. So I called, my son and his girlfriend. I said, you need to come say goodbye. I dropped everything in the midst of this kind of chaotic time, created a space for her in her window that she loved. I held her a lot, like a baby, like I held her, but trying to be aware of, is that what she wants or is that what I want? Is that making her more comfortable or less comfortable? And I think it was probably a little bit of both, to be honest. But I tried not to do it in excess, and I put her in her little spot, and I kind of kept it very calm around her, and I had some candles burning and stuff like that, just sort of symbolizing like there's something important happening right here. Like this is a dedicated space for this event to take place. So to be able to drop everything and think about what made sense to do in that moment, it really felt different to me. We did basically a natural burial. We wrapped her in a shrouded kind of thing with flowers, and we were able to bury her in our backyard where she lived her entire life. It sort of made sense that she got to be buried in a place that, place is so important for cats. And so it was really beautiful. And I think you helped, watching you learn some of these things helped me to kind of have more imagination of what's possible and confidence that those things can be done, and they're not just better for us. I think they're better for the animals, and they're better for, it teaches the other people around us too, if we're able to bring in other family members and things like that into that process.
and especially in a death adverse society, this is one of the ways to start to see how a really sad thing can be, still is sad, but just we get to bring in this like beauty and reverence and joy around it too. So I think it's a way to start to see these things and see and like kind of feel it out for ourselves of, oh yeah, am I pushing my experience on this animal? Am I letting the animal have their experience? That's a beautiful lesson. And am I letting their body do what it's needing to do versus trying to fix it at all costs, which we see a lot family members trying to do. Like, we've got to fight this thing. And it's like, is that what's best? And is that what's best for this being? So we see that in animals too. And then just yeah, trying out, ceremony isn't reserved for those who know how to do ceremonies for all of us. And you just make it up as you go. And it ends
Mm-hmm.
up being really beautiful because it's inspired, like you said.
One thing that we've heard a lot is we sometimes have more grief when a pet dies than we do when a relative dies. And you've talked a little bit about this. I think it's important to talk about, because it is one of those things that's like, we're like ashamed to say that. But you said something to me once that I think about a lot, which is our pets are They have so much presence in our homes and in our lives, and they're there all the time. So if you want to maybe elaborate a little bit more on that, I think that's good for people to hear.
When I feel anticipatory grief around Spanky, my girl who just turned 11. And a lot of that has to do with, first of all, my ex-husband got her for me. So I got her, and about a month later, we moved to this house. So that big move and me purchasing this home and making it a home. And now I have lived here longer than anywhere else in my life. So, like, she's been with me through that and through the divorce, Dustin coming into our lives. And she's been through all these senior dogs that just keep bringing in. And she's been through me getting sober. She's been through me leaving a career. She's just been there the whole time. So yeah, it's like they're these little witnesses. And so when they die, it's like you were my other, like you were my little familiar. You knew everything. And so that's big. I mean, that just is. And I don't think anybody should feel guilty for just having a lot of grief over that. I think it's absolutely valid. Yeah, it's totally okay.
I didn't have pets earlier in my adult life, partly because we moved a lot. But if I'm being really honest, it was that I didn't want to deal with the death and dying aspect of having pets. I saw how hard it was for people, and I eventually got over that. And I'm really glad I did, because I would hate to have denied myself all the joy and comfort that I had with these animals. And as we know, grief means that there was love there. And so we can kind of reframe grief and as a sign of how much love there was. So,
yeah.
Okay. So in closing, I will read this obituary of Walter George Burrell Jr. of Newark. It just starts by saying, "Is a dead person. He is no more. He is bereft of life. He is deceased. He has rung down the curtain and gone to join the choir invisible. He has expired and gone to meet his maker." I love that they just kept going with the...
Yeah, sure. Get into it.
He drifted off this mortal coil on March 9th, 2014 at his home. His spirit was released from his worn-out shell of a body and is now exploring the universe. He was surrounded by his loving wife of 57 years, Helene Sellers-Burrell, who will now be able to purchase the mink coat which he had always refused her, because he believed only minks should wear mink. Only minks should wear mink. Okay, one more little bit. There will be no viewing, since his wife refuses to honor his request to have him standing in the corner of the room with a glass of Jack Daniels in his hand so he would appear natural to visitors.
Oh my God. That's a really good one.
That was pretty good. I wonder if his wife wrote that, or who wrote them.
Only mink should wear mink. That is, I agree. Oh my God. Okay. Well, there we go.
Signing off.
Until next time.